Hi everyone, it's Michael again. On this series of our Java tutorial for beginners, we're going to be talking about array. So in this video, you will learn how Java array step by step, and we're going to have understanding of what arrays are. We're going to know how to create arrays, how we can basically access arrays elements, how we can update the array values. Also, we're going to look into looping through an array, and also we'll try and check real world example of what an arrays are. So, like I said, I used to say this is a perfect video for beginners for you to learn Java programming step by step. If you have missed any of our previous video, you can just click on our channels and actually look through the playlist that's explain Java from the beginning, and you can follow our video through. Now, so I'm going to actually explain what array does and how. So array basically how to make use of it. So array basically allow us to store multiple value in a single variable. So I will use this as an example. I'll say, imagine storing 100 student score using a separate variable. For instance, having something like int score 1 and is equals to 10, and you try to try the another score to be equals to, let's say, score 2 to be equals to 20, and you keep doing it like that, like that, and just imagine how messy that's going to actually be, and it's not going to be efficient enough for us when it comes to that. So but with arrays, Java gives us a cleaner and smarter way to manage multiple values. So in this video, we'll learn how to create and use array in Java step by step. So I'll start by explaining what is an array. An array is a collection of multiple value stored under one variable name. So I just made an example here, having something like the score 1, the score 2, and we have maybe, let's say, 100 students that we have to register the score. That's going to be very hectic for us and messy, right? But with an array, we can have this to be, we can call it scores, have our curly bracket and have, for instance, 10, 20, 30, and so on like that. And we'll be able to store the scores there. So I'm going to try and explain what each of these basically means. So we can actually see that this is well organized, right? So what is the int with the square brackets? The int with square brackets, this means an integer array, and the value are actually stored in that curly bracket that we have right there in front of us. So I'm going to start by explaining how to create an array. First, we have to direct, we have what is called direct initialization. This is what I just did here, where we have this int, the square bracket scores. This is what is called the direct initialization. Like I explained, this is the integer array, and this is the variable name, and these are the value that is going to be stored inside this array. And of course, the next step, the method 2, we have to also create, we have to create it first and add our value, later going forward. So I'm just going to use an example also. Let's say int this, and let's say numbers equals to new int, let's say 5. So what does this really means? Like I said, this is an integer array, and this is the variable name, and we're basically saying this array can actually this array can only create a space for 5 integers. So of course, we already explained in the previous video what an integer is basically. So if, for instance, we want to add value, like I said you have to create it first and add add later, add the value later to it. For instance, I want to add values to this. All I just need to do is number this 0. I will explain what the 0 means. I'd like to make my code a little bit cleaner. So saying 10, for instance, I'm just gonna say numbers this one, okay, and equals 20, and we're gonna actually have it this value are basically going to be stored inside this array. So what does this 0 mean? Is the index. So index does not start from 1, it starts from 0 when it comes to array, and it's going to be 0, 1. And if we try to, for instance, try to see what value that we have, inside these numbers, what we just need to do is, let's say, system out print line. I'll say numbers 0. If we try to run this, it's meant to give us 10 because that's the index of it. Of course, that's 10. If you decide to make it, 1, it's going to print for us 20. And that's 20 right there. So I'm sure we actually understand that aspect of the how it's been arranged. So we're going to talk about assessing array value, which is what I just spoke about just now. What I just showed you right now is we are able to assess the value inside these array numbers starting from the index, which is 0, and we're able to the next one, which is 1, because we only start from 0 to 1. It depends on how many number of values that we have inside, numbers of elements that we have inside the array. So also we're going to talk about modifying the array value. Yes, you can modify an array value because I can see here there's nothing that is making it like a constant or final, so we can be able to modify whatever the value might be. For instance, here we already know that 0 is 10, 1 is equals to 20. We can decide to say system, let's say out, saying print line. I'm just gonna say, for instance, I can say number, let's say this, for instance, 1. Why? We know it's 20. I can decide to make it 100 and try to print it. So keep in mind, I'm still printing 1, 1. So we're going to see this first one is going to be 20 and this is going to be 100. So let's try and run this. Yeah, we can see that the first one is 20 and the next one is actually 100. So inside the array, we can actually modify what the value is. So my next part is going to be, I'm going to talk about looping through array. So I will say this, loops works perfectly with arrays because we're going to be able to, get each value that we have inside the array. I'm definitely very sure we spoke about loop in our previous video, and this is one of the examples that we're going to be making use of. This is a practical real world scenario that we're going to be making use of loop. So I'm going to be using these numbers. I'm going to loop through and be able to get the value that is in, this scores. I'm going to be able to loop through and get all the values that are there. So keep in mind, we're going to make use of for loop here. We're going to say int high equals 0 when high is less than scores dot the length. That means when the length, when is 0, so what it means here is that we already know high is equals to 0. When is 0 is less than the length, that means the number of what we have inside our array, that means the 10 to 1, that's 3. So that means, of course, we know that 0 is less than it, so it should loop through it. And we now say hi should loop through it, and we will now go ahead and print it out. And we're going to say scores brackets hi, and that's just going to print out. So what we just want to do is I want you to look through the scores here. So it's just going to print for us 10, 2, and 3 on, it's going to look through all the value that we have there. So I'm just going to try and comment this out, sorry, because I just want this part to be out. Now we can see that we just look through what we have inside here, and we're able to get all the value inside that particular array. So we also have what is called enhance for loop. So I'm going to explain what enhance for loop, an example of an enhance for loop. So we have something like for, let's say, int score, we now say scores, okay, I'm right. Yes, so scores, right? Now say for system dot out dot print so we are basically trying to loop through and this is what is called the enhance loop. I will try to comment this out and try to run this part. You can see that's another form of loop. It's called the enhanced looping. So this is called an enhanced loop or for each loop. Let me put it that way. So, and it's cleaner and it's much more easier to read. Let me put it that way. Unlike, it depends on anyone that you prefer to, write the one that you think is much more easier. But I think it's just what's speaking about when it comes to talking about loop. So, like I said, the real world example is the student's course. We can actually use these when it comes to shopping cart prices. I want to look through the prices. It can be double. You can use it. I just use an integer for an example. You can decide to make it as a table. You can try to use it, with string. It depends on the data type that you want to make use of. So I would like to talk about the common beginner mistakes. So in most cases, when you use the invalid index, you might get the wrong value when it comes to that. So if the array has, 3 elements, this can actually cause an error. Let me put it that way. You can see that we said in that place, we said the hint number is 5. So if you have more than 5 inside that particular, if you have more than 5 elements in that particular array, it's going to actually cause errors. It's going to return an error for you. And also sometimes some people forget about the size of the array. Sometimes these are the common mistake that a lot of beginners basically make use of. At the end of my video, in most cases, I love giving I always give the advice that we should pause the video, take our time to do some exercises and practice. If we are able to do that, that is going to make us be more efficient. I will have greater understanding of what we've been learning so far. And if there is any issue that you encounter at the course of you trying to practice, just drop your comment on this video. I'm going to get to respond to you, and we can actually solve this basically together. So I would like to actually close my this video by telling you, how arrays work internally. Arrays basically store value in a continuous memory location. This makes accessing of the elements more faster. And also, I would actually like to close this particular video by saying, let's try and practice more. Let's try and ask questions. If you encounter any kind of issue, drop your comment, subscribe to this video, and so that you can get any video that we actually get to post on the go and you won't miss any of those. So now I'm sure we have a better understanding of what arrays and how they work and how they can work, in our real life situation. So in the next video, we're going to learn about method and how to organize, reusable code in Java. Subscribe and continue with our course. See you in the next video. Thank you. Bye for now.